In every business, that there's risk of, losing everything because you didn't make sales. But the one risk, well, I shouldn't say the one risk, there's numerous legal risks that you really don't have to be taking. Today, we're talking with small business attorney Cheri D. Andrews about three legal risks that too many business owners are taking. Welcome to Make It Click, Cheri. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Christina. I'm happy to be here.
Well, Cheri, let's dive right into this whole fun subject. Yeah, I know it's not.
Fun for
it's
me, maybe not
it's
for
fun for
everyone
you,
else.
yes, yes. But the rest of us are like, oh, we cringe when you think of the legal stuff. Let's dive right in with the the topic of legal entities. Of, do we have to be an LLC, or, is a DBA good enough? First, can you just briefly explain the different types of entities?
Absolutely, Christine. So if you start a business and you do nothing else, the sole proprietorship or partnership, if there's two or more of you, is the default. That's just what you are. The problem with being a sole proprietor is you are the business. There is no legal entity that separates you from your business. So all of your personal assets, your home, your car, your bank accounts, your 401k, they are all at risk in answering for the debts and obligations of your business. If your business gets sued, your house is up for grabs. This is why I recommend most small businesses set up an LLC. The LLC really doesn't change the way you operate at all. What it does is it creates that separate legal container that holds your business and allows you to insulate and protect your personal assets. For most small businesses, the LLC is going to be the best option. The only time I would say you're fine being a sole proprietor is if you are in what I like to call a no risk business. And when I mean no risk, I'm talking about you make and sell greeting cards on Etsy. You have no direct contact with your clients, and the worst they're going to get out of your product is a paper cut. That's what I consider a no risk business. Anything else, if you're giving advice, if you are sending any kind of product that could harm someone or be subject to allergies or anything like that, you really want to have that LLC in place.
Yeah. Now you had said about, when you don't have the LLC, everything you own is at risk. You get sued and everything. I was surprised when I was doing a little research on this to find that 36% to 53% of small businesses are sued every year. And that in the whole lifespan of business, 90% will experience some sort of lawsuit at some point. I was like, oh my gosh. I
Uh,
think we
yeah.
tend to forget well, we don't forget, we don't wanna deal with it, I guess it is.
And this is true. The longer you're in business, the more successful you become, the bigger the target, if you will, becomes. And it really isn't a matter of if you will be sued, it's when. If you're in business long enough, it's eventually going to happen.
Mhm. Now
It's
for
an unfortunate statement on our society.
Yeah, yeah. Now as far as for those of our listeners who, are just sole proprietors at this point, can you just give us some ideas on what would a basic cost be to get that LLC, and what does it mean going forward every year? Does it really change the business and what you have to do, I guess is, the big question.
All right, so the advantage of the LLC over the more traditional C corporation is you don't have to have a board of directors, you don't have to maintain meeting minutes. It's not as formal, and you're not filing and paying taxes on behalf of your company. The taxes just pass right through to your individual 1040 via a Schedule C. And that's the same whether you're a sole proprietor or an LLC. So that part of it doesn't change. Setting up the LLC is going to depend entirely on what state you're in, and every state has different rules, different costs, and different requirements. Pennsylvania, for example, you pay a one-time upfront filing fee of $125. And then for most LLCs in Pennsylvania, you only have to file with them once every 10 years to let them know you're still in business. There are other states where you're going to have an annual filing with a fee attached to it. And in some states, that fee can be significant. So it really depends on where you're located.
Well, and we have to look at what is the risk. What risk do we want to take?
Yep.
So that, yeah, that's good information, because I know accountants tend to look at these things differently. They don't look at that aspect of it. So I do appreciate your take
Mhm.
on this subject. Let's move on to contracts. Now, there's different types of contracts. What are some of the more common ones that a majority of businesses might be using?
Okay, so if you are a service-based business, you're going to want a service contract. That's the contract between you as the company and your client that spells out what services you're providing, what they're paying for it, and then all the legal protections. So we get your business terms and your legal terms in there. A lot of small businesses need NDAs if they are talking about collaborating or sharing their ideas and they don't want somebody else to steal that idea and run with it. If you are hiring outside help that is not going to be a W 2 employee, you'll want an independent contractor agreement to set up the relationship between you and that help you're hiring, whether it's a bookkeeper, a virtual administrator, there are so many different things, social media management, all kinds of different things you could be hiring somebody else to help with. And for all of those, you're going to want an agreement there. um, and I mean, that only scratches the surface. There are as many different types of agreements as there are different types of businesses. So it really, again, it depends on your business, it depends on your business model. um, and, I get asked all the time, well, do I really even need an agreement? Like, what's the point of having this contract? The point is that the contract establishes clear expectations between the parties. Each side knows what they're getting and what they're giving in exchange, and they know what's going to happen in the event that they want to terminate, there's a dispute, what law applies, where they can sue. All of those things get laid out so that the parties know what they're getting into. And you have the opportunity to set up all the legal protections up front instead of waiting until somebody decides to sue you and then scrambling to try to figure it out.
Now, there's contract and agreement. Is there a difference between
No, I
those
I
2, or?
actually I use them interchangeably. They are the same thing. I tend to refer to them as agreements, and I know most of the world refers to them as contracts. So, but it's the same thing.
Oh, okay, okay. And now, like you say, we're talking about service-based, business owners. I understand that, for a long-term relationship, have an agreement. What if it's just a short-term relationship, a short-term package of services you're delivering? Is an agreement needed for short term?
Again, really dependent on the situation, but I'm going to say, you know, people, let's go back thousands of years. People have been conducting business on handshake and verbal agreements since the time of the cavemen, since they were trading furs and jewelry and whatever. Just because you can doesn't mean it's a good idea, because the lack of the contract is what leaves you exposed to risk. With the contract, you delegate the risk, you decide who's responsible for what, and you have the legal protections in place. Let's say it's a short-term, one-off coaching um, engagement. You're going to get on the phone with somebody or on Zoom and you're going to spend an hour with them. and you're charging them $350, and it seems like that's hardly worth the time and effort to put together a contract. Except if you're doing that, and let's say you're in Pennsylvania and the person you're coaching is in California. When they get off that phone at the end of the hour and they decided that they really didn't feel like they got their money's worth and they want to sue you to get their money back, do you really want to have to defend in California? No, you don't, because their laws are way different than ours in Pennsylvania. So if you had had a simple contract in the sign up process, that would have already been covered.
Yeah.
And if they know they can only sue you in Pennsylvania and they're in California, they're less likely to bother.
Right. Yeah. And our listeners might be thinking, oh my goodness, there's something else I have to put in place in my business. As you said, process. Once you put it in place and you automate that process, it's seamless. Once you get it going. Speaking from a process person point of view here, that's like,
Right. And
it's
you
not like,
understand that once it's there, it's done. You don't have to do it again. It's yes, is it, the pain of getting it set up in the first place? Yes, but once you've done it, then every contract that follows, you're protected.
yeah,
And that's worth the effort.
yeah, yeah. So. Now, the last area I wanted to talk today was about trademarks. I hear differing thoughts on trademarks. What are some of the common myths? I guess let's start with that about trademarks.
So some people think that by putting the TM symbol on their mark, that they've gained some legal rights and that it's now theirs. That's not true. The only way you get a trademark is by registering your mark with the USPTO and going through the process and getting them to approve it. So that's one of the big ones. Another one is somehow people think that if they own the URL for a name, or if they've registered their name with their state as an LLC or a DBA, that they own it and that they're good to go. Again, not true. You could have registered it with your state and own the LLC, but you could, or own the URL, but you could have somebody who predated you who is using that mark and filed a registration with the USPTO who owns that mark. So now your use of it, both the URL and the business name, are infringing their mark. So it's people just think, oh, I just need to get it cleared with the state and I'm good. It's not true.
No. So would you say then if somebody had a business name that they felt this is it, I'm going to be using this for years, so should they start looking into the trademark first before they ultimately make the decision to then go for the LLC and the domain and everything? Would that be a better starting place then?
Absolutely. That's a very good question, Christine, and absolutely yes. The best world for me as an attorney is when I get somebody who's at the beginning of the process of setting up their business, and I can tell them choosing your business name and registering it with your state and getting the domain should go hand in hand with a trademark search to make sure that that name is available for use and that you're not going to be infringing anyone else's use of a mark. So, at the same time that you're thinking about names, you should be running them by an attorney and getting a trademark search done to make sure they actually are available. And once you know you're good to go with them on the trademark end, then you go ahead and, I have no problem with people grabbing the URLs just because, that's $12 and after a year you drop it. But actually registering with your state, you want to make sure you're registering a name you can use for the long term.
Yeah. Wow. This has been great information, Cheri. If somebody wants to get a hold of you, or did you have something you'd like to offer the audience?
Absolutely. I have a free download all about trademark busting myths and telling you a little bit about the process of, what trademark is about and, how to get started there. That's available on my website at sherryandrews.com/trademark-value.
I would think I'm gonna have to go there and get it myself. That sounds amazing. This whole thing with trademarks, it's new information for me. Sherry, I do have one final question for you. And it's not about trademarks and contracts and everything, but it's more about you and your business. You are an attorney in your own practice. When you look back on your years, is there something that comes to mind that you feel that's what made it click in your business? That's this one thing that you learned, or maybe it's a piece of technology that you use in your business. I'm always looking for technology, but that's okay if it's something you learned. Does anything come to mind, that, you would say, "Oh my goodness, this is what made it click in my business?"
Uh, yeah, there is. It's called Don't Go It Alone. Every business owner needs help. We all have our own zones of genius, and we all have areas where we frankly suck. Um, and when I figured out that spinning my wheels for things like bookkeeping or social media management was maybe not the best use of my time, and I actually sought help in those areas, it made a huge difference both in how I viewed my business and in how visible I was able to become, because somebody else running my social media, I'm in places that I would never be in if it was up to me to post. So, um, there is always some area where you can use help. There are 4 areas where you definitely wanna make sure you have help: legal, insurance, finances, taxes, because those areas, one single mistake can wipe out your business. But, there's always other areas where, as small business owners, we just need someone else on board. I wouldn't have a website if I had to design it myself. I got somebody to do that work. Those are the kind of things. Don't go it alone. There are lots of other small businesses out there offering services that are affordable. As soon as you start making money, you can get that kind of help.
Yeah. Great advice. Thank you so much for being my guest today on Make It Click, Sherry.
Yeah, thank you for having